2023. I'm the chair, Amy Gailey. Today we have our Senate Sergeant at Arms. We have Eddie Broughton, Michael Cavanis, John Enlow, Dwight Green, and Linda Matthews. So thank you all for being here today. And then we also have some Senate pages. We have, and if you would stand please and give us a little wave when I call your name, Bryn Arney from Wilmington, North Carolina, sponsored by Senator Lee. Cam Cooper from Witsit, sponsored by Senator Murdoch. Advika Karthik from Greensboro, sponsored by Senator Berger. Kennedy Lee from Raleigh, sponsored by Senator Grafstein. Jake Maybauer from Pinehurst, sponsored by Senator McInnes. And Daniel Tu from Bailey, sponsored by Senator Buck Newton. So thank you all pages for being here today. We appreciate you. First on our agenda we're going to do today is House Bill 432, Principal Licensure Changes. Senator Lee will present the bill, and I believe there's an amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will just kind of run briefly through the bill. First, this is updating essentially licensure standards for principals and vice principals. These standards have not been updated for over a decade. When they were updated, I think in 2012, there was an exam requirement that had never been enforced, met, known about, and so in the past year or so, we have waived that requirement to make sure that the principals were still in good standing. And in the context of looking at those standards with respect to the test, we looked at some other things as well. And this is this process or procedure has been put forth by DPI. And you can see that the 5-year renewable license now, some of the requirements are going to be bachelor's degree, successful completion of an administrator prep program, 4 years of experience as a licensed professional educator, and then a portfolio approved by the state board. The state board is going to be adopting rules for 2 classes of administrator licenses, the administrator license and a provisional assistant principal license. And with that, I have a brief amendment, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. The amendment really is just going to change the 350-hour internship requirement to a 500-hour requirement. A lot of the ed prep schools or administrator prep programs require more than that, but we've been told that in some of the part-time programs, they need to be able to have a lesser amount of hours because they're still actively in the schools working part-time. And with that, I have the amendment.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the amendment? Seeing none, Senator Overcash moves for adoption of the amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. So the bill is before us. Do you have any more information about the bill, Senator Lee?
No, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator McInnes.
Motion to approve at the appropriate time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone with other? Senator Robinson.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And Senator Lee, I have a couple of questions, and maybe it's clarification. Maybe I'm not reading it all. Does this bill remove the master's exam, the master's requirement for a principal?
Senator Lee.
I don't think it does. I think it does, but I would defer to Ms. McCraw.
Ms. McCraw, staff.
Yes, Senator Robinson, Senator Lee is correct. The requirements now for an administrator license would be that you have to hold a bachelor's degree, complete the APP program. You would have to have 4 years of experience as a licensed professional educator, and you would have to have a successfully completed portfolio.
Okay.
Senator Robinson, follow-up?
Yes, follow-up. Then, and I believe you already said it removed passing the exam as well. I think you said that. Am I right?
Yes, Senator Robinson. Apparently that requirement has not been enforced in a decade, and we actually had to waive it last year because of that. And in the context of looking at that and the waiver and how long it's been since the requirements were updated, DPI went through and updated all these standards.
Okay. Well,
Senator Robinson, follow-up?
thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. So I'm concerned about removing the masters first, since a lot of teachers are have been urged before to move to acquiring the masters, of course, for the additional compensation that the budgets are fooling around with. But I think it's so important that we at least require principals to have the masters. I guess DPI is all right with removing the exam, but I'm concerned about removing that master's requirement. Anybody who supervises someone ought to at least have the same level of competency, skill level, et cetera, so then they can evaluate those persons who are under them. And that's what principals have to do if we expect to have schools that are performing, teachers that are high performing as well. So I'm concerned about removing that. And the other piece is, I thought I saw a removal of a requirement to complete so many hours of teaching, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they don't have to have that.
Senator Lee?
Just to kind of address the masters first, that's why the bill provides additional criteria for administrator prep programs, and one of the criteria is that it's going to lead to an MSA or a master's of in education and educational leadership. So there is some kind of checks and balances around that, and we're really trying to get more administrators in the program while maintaining some fidelity, and that's why this kind of modifies some of the APP. As to your second question, Karen McCraw might have a better answer.
We have a clarifying statement from Karen McCraw.
Okay.
Yes, so Senator Robinson, when I said they would have to complete the APP, that's what the APP leads to, is the master's. So they would still hold a master's when they've completed that. The one change, I think you're talking about the teaching hours. Previously, you had to have 4 hours of classroom teaching.
Right.
They are changing it that you would have 4 hours, 4 years, 4 years as a licensed personnel in the school. So it would allow someone who is an instructional support personnel to also move into this track. So if you had someone who was a guidance counselor or a media specialist who had been working in the schools in 4 years, they would be eligible now.
Okay, I can accept that then. Thank you so much, Karen.
Any other questions or concerns? Senator Sanderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairman Lee, even at the raising it to the 500 hours compared to the year-long internship, are those somewhat equal as far as total hours that will be spent, or is it a lot less or more?
Senator Lee?
As I mentioned, some of the prep programs have a minimum of 1,000 hours. The reason the bill came over from the House at 350 hours, we've pushed it up to 500 hours, and really to take into account those who are going through these programs while they're still working and still in the schools. And so while it doesn't have the same amount of hours, the applicants are actually still in the schools, whereas in the other programs, they're essentially full-time in the program.
Other questions or comments? Senator Marcus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding that the North Carolina Association of School Administrators supports the bill, and that's good to hear. Are you aware of any public education-related organizations that are in opposition, or is everyone in agreement that these revisions make sense and would be good for public education?
Senator Lee?
I'm not aware of anyone that has concerns about the bill. There was some concern about the hour requirement when originally we were looking to move it up to the 1,000 hours. So we've kind of settled on the 500 hours instead of the 350 that came over from the House.
Follow-up, Senator Marcus? Any other questions or comments? Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this bill? All right, seeing none, Senator McInnes has made a motion for favorable to the bill as amended, rolled into a proposed committee substitute with a favorable report to the committee substitute, and an unfavorable report to the original bill with the re-referral to rules. All in favor of Senator McInnes's motion, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you so much. Next on our agenda is House Bill 8, Computer Science Graduation Requirement, and Representative Paré is here to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, House Bill 8 before you today will establish a computer science graduation requirement from high school, and it will also require public school units to offer computer science instruction to students in middle school and high school. The requirement does not increase the total number of credits required for graduation, but it reduces an elective credit by 1. So there are some exceptions in the bill. For example, an IEP student, if their program doesn't would prevent them from completing the requirement, they would be exempt. There is a good runway for this bill. There is a waiver that public school units can submit to the Department of Public Instruction if they're not ready yet to implement this change. So in earnest, this requirement would go into effect in the 2026 and 2027 school year. This was a bipartisan effort in the House. It passed near unanimous on the floor. And I guess I will just say, before we take questions, that 70% of all jobs over the next decade will require a baseline knowledge in computer science. So that's why we're doing this. So this really wasn't about if we should do this. It was about how to best implement this. And I think we have a good product before you today. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Representative Paré. Questions or concerns from the committee? Senator Chaudhary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to commend Representative Paré for this bill. I believe a 21st century public education has to reflect the skills and knowledge required for a computer science education. And as we know, in our region alone, we have electric vehicle manufacturers and semiconductor manufacturers that are going to bring jobs and require the knowledge of computer science as well. And so I'm excited to see this bill move forward and make a favorable motion at the appropriate time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Chaudhary. Senator Murdoch,
Yes, just had a question for the bill sponsor.
you may ask your question.
Yes, thank you again for bringing this bill forward. Just wanted a little bit more information around the implementation of it and staffing if school districts or LPs are just having an issue finding the correct teachers and instructors for this new requirement.
Representative Paré.
Thank you for that question, Senator Murdoch. Yes, I did describe the runway, so for implementation, I think that's appropriate. There are some school units right now that are ready to implement this for the 2024-2025 school year. Some are not ready yet. However, and maybe I can let Jamie Falkenberry's here from DPI if that's appropriate, Chair, but I can speak a little bit to this, that I know that's been a priority for the department for many, many years. The General Assembly has invested millions of dollars in professional development for our teachers. Most notably in 2021, the General Assembly provided $2.5 million for professional development. And then a computer science division was created at DPI. So this has been prepared for many years. I know that we have still some work to do, but that's mapped out pretty accurately and reasonably from DPI to effectively put this program in place in that timeline that I described.
Senator Murdoch, does that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else have a question? Senator Marcus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a follow-up comment, I think, on what Senator Murdoch was raising. I think we all agree this is the wave of the future. These are the sort of skills we want our high school students to acquire during school. I would just note that I'm not sure every school is equipped with the kind of computer labs, and I'm not sure every student has a laptop that they can do homework on at home. And when it's computer science homework, I would think it's even more important that they have a laptop. So I hope we will continue to work on some of the initiatives that I know this body and the governor's office have been looking to make sure we get computer access for all students and all schools, because it's more and more important every day, especially with a bill like this. But I do support it, and I thank you for it.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is anyone from the public wish to speak on this bill? Sir, if you could tell us your name and so forth.
My name is Tom Looney. I represent the IT business community today. Spent 40 years between Lenovo and IBM. And I work personally with Jamie Falkenberry across the state getting business to support this effort. And Senator Chattery, your comments are right on. Every job is going to be touched by computer science, and I couldn't be more proud of this body of taking this action. I believe we can be a national example in this country of what we can do with the investments that you're going to make and the focus on computer science. So I thank all of you for this. I really didn't have any planned comments, but I quite frankly couldn't control myself because this is an important piece of work. I was involved in the standards as well, so I get my hands dirty when I get involved in things, and you all have made a phenomenal, hopefully a phenomenal decision today to move this forward. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, if there's no further public comment or discussion from the committee, Senator Chattery has moved for a favorable report with a re-referral to rules. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you so much, and we're adjourned.
Madam Chair, before you adjourn, can I make a comment, please? It'll only take a second, and it's important.
Okay.
Very important.
Senator Robinson.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that yesterday, students from the University of North Carolina were on the quad, and some visited us. One young woman from Elizabeth City visited me who's getting her master's in mathematics, specifically calculus. And her name is Salisa Godfrey, and at some point I'd like for her to talk because she talked about the disconnect in teaching calculus in terms of the language from middle school to high school and how students are not grasping calculus. And in this state, we're underperforming in mathematics, specifically in calculus. And a lot of that has to do with teaching pedagogy. So I wanted to mention her today because I think that she's doing a fantastic job. Salisa Godfrey from Elizabeth City State, who's teaching, who's doing a master's in mathematics. And to commend her, but certainly recommend that at a later point we certainly talk about this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. I know that I've been talking with Representative Paré and Senator Chattery and many others about the issue of math education in our state, and that's a very important question. So thank you for that moment of personal privilege, and now we'll be adjourned. Thank you.
House Bill 432, clerk will read.
Representatives Willis, Blackwell, Cotham, and Torbett. A bill to be entitled Principal Licensure Changes. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Gentleman from Union, Representative Willis, recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill simply reestablishes the requirements for our principal licensure programs and brings together the private colleges, the UNC system, our stakeholders with DPI, and just ensures that we've got the right training programs and protocols in place for our principal licensure. We ask for your support for the bill. Thank you.
Further discussion, further debate? If not, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 432 on second reading. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. ARP, aye. Clerk will machine record the vote. 113 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. House Bill 432 passes second reading and without objection. Be read third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question for the House is the passage of House Bill 432 on third reading. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 432 having passed third reading, bill will be sent to the Senate.